Hey guys, welcome to episode 7 of the Football Companion Show. I really appreciate those of you who are tuning in. So, as I mentioned previously on my show, this section will primarily focus on the previewing of the weekend's fixtures, so the games that are taking place today and tomorrow. There was actually a game that took place last night that I wasn't quite aware of until pretty late in the day. It was Bournemouth versus Brighton. It was like a 3 a.m. kickoff Singapore time, so who the fuck has got time to stay up for that? So yeah, Bournemouth ran out 2-1 winners. I'm pretty sure most of you didn't even know there was a game going on until you checked the scores this morning. But anyway, kicking things off, it's a topic that I'd rather not discuss, but it's something that keeps coming up week after week after week. 2 words, Dejan Lovren. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, I would suggest or encourage you to go and watch Sevilla's first goal against Liverpool in the Champions League fixture on Wednesday night. It's absolutely comical stuff, especially if you're not a United fan. I'm sure you'll find it pretty funny. Or if you're not a Liverpool fan, sorry. If you are a United fan, you definitely find it funny. But yeah, basically what happens is Sevilla winger plays the ball in. Wasn't a particularly troubling ball, or had not much curve on it, not much pace on it. So any defender, Sunday League level, conference level, championship level, any defender knows all you need to do is put your foot through it and clear it. Kick it out the stands, kick it out of play, kick it anywhere, just kick it anywhere. You're a professional footballer, you should be able to kick the ball. Not Dejan Lovren though. £20 million Croatian international, mainstay in the Liverpool side for 3 years. Does not know how to kick the ball. The ball goes under his foot. Sevilla player at the back post taps it in. 1-0 Sevilla, 5 minutes gone. And he made a couple of errors throughout the game. One thing I found particularly funny in retrospect, at the time I was infuriated with it, was at one point he decides that he's good enough to stride out from centre back. So he goes jollying along from centre back, sees a couple of Sevilla players closing him down, absolutely panics, loses his shit, turns around. I'm not even kidding, he literally turns around and just kicks the ball. And he ends up in the middle of the pitch, and I think Sevilla actually got a counter attack from that. But yeah, I mean, this is not things that I'm making up, these are things that he's actually doing in a game. And those of you who are not Liverpool fans, you guys have the privilege of not having to see this week in, week out. I mean, he's gotten to the stage where it's pretty fucking ridiculous that he's still playing for us. I can't fathom why any manager, especially someone as illustrious as Klopp, would want to start him in the game. I mean, every single game we go into, we're going to go into it thinking we have to score 3-4 goals just to win, because we know with him in the side, we're going to concede at least 2-3, or not 3, but at least 1 or 2 goals for sure, guaranteed. So yeah, I mean, and Klopp's come out midweek saying things like it wasn't Lovren's fault, there were mistakes in the build-up to the goal. I mean, he needs to stop kidding the fans. Liverpool fans are a knowledgeable bunch of fans. I mean, especially those who go to the game, they know what they're talking about. And it's just time to stop kidding them. We know he's not good enough. Everyone knows he's not good enough. Stop playing him. Okay, that if you're trying a weird experiment thinking it's going to work, it's not going to work. Seen him for 2 years, 3 years even. He's not capable of playing at this level. So yeah, get him out of the side ASAP, I hope. Although I'm pretty sure he's going to start today anyway. So yeah, so moving on to the fixtures that are coming up. I'll start with the big game and then work my way from there. So let me pull up the fixtures right now. Okay, yeah, so big game for the weekend is Arsenal versus Chelsea. It takes place at Stamford Bridge. I think it's a 8:30 kickoff. Now traditionally we know Arsenal don't do well in games like these. I mean, away from home to the big sides, they really struggle, especially at Stamford Bridge. I mean, off the top of my head, I think the last time they won there was some crazy 5-3 game in like 2010, I think, or 2011. I can't quite recall, but it was around that time frame. So that was some 6 years ago. And we know Arsenal, when they're given a chance to play football, they're great to watch. I admit that. When sides allow them time on the ball, they can pick you apart. But when you come up against the bigger sides who are in your face, who are physical, who are good on the ball themselves, that's when they struggle. And we know Chelsea are off all of those things. Chelsea have really kick-started their season. 4 wins on the trot. They've thumped Korobor, I think, or Korobek. Can't quite pronounce the name, but they've thumped them 6-0 in midweek. And I know people will say that it's a small side, but winning 6-0 in the Champions League against anyone is no mean feat. So yeah, that's impressive from Chelsea's regard. For Arsenal, I know tactics do play a part in their demise in these big games, but it's also a mentality thing. It's almost like they go onto the pitch defeated. Like the weight of expectations is just too much for them. So yeah, I don't expect much to change from an Arsenal perspective. Although they have got back-to-back wins going into this game, which is good for them confidence-wise. I just think Chelsea way too strong, way too good, way too solid defensively to not get the 3 points in this game. I expect it to be 3-1 to Chelsea. So now I'll work on the games from a chronological order. So the early kickoff tonight is Crystal Palace versus Southampton. Not a great game to watch, in my opinion. Southampton haven't been doing great themselves. I mean, they brought in a manager thinking there was going to be a change in the style of play, thinking to play more fluid football. Hasn't quite worked out. They've been leaking goals at the back. Haven't been great going forward. Only thing that's positive for them is that it looks as though Virgil van Dijk is being reintegrated into the team. And obviously, he's a player that I would have preferred to see in a Liverpool shirt, but didn't quite work out. But yeah, he's a great addition to their team. He's head and shoulders above anyone in their team, especially their back line. He'll add some composure, add some leadership. So that's a good note for them. But with regards to just the way they play, it hasn't been living up to expectations. But they have done better than the side that they're facing, Crystal Palace. I mean, how can anyone think that Roy Hodgson is going to do a better job than Frank de Boer? I mean, Frank de Boer, yeah, highly rated, hasn't quite worked out, but Roy fucking Hodgson has a history of failure. As a Liverpool fan, I had to endure like 5 months of him in charge. It was the worst period in my time supporting the club. It was bad. Each game was just a pain to watch. Man, I almost feel bad for Palace fans, but I don't know any, so fuck them. So yeah, Roy Hodgson in charge. It's not going to be a pretty game to watch. It's going to be boring, dull football, and I expect it to be a boring, dull result. I'm going to go for 0-0. Next up is Huddersfield versus Leicester. Now, Huddersfield lost 2-0 to West Ham the previous game week, but I think they've been doing pretty well overall this season. And I mentioned earlier that I thought that Leicester did pretty well in the transfer window. So I think both these sides will score in this game. I don't see a winner here either. I'm going to go for 2-2. Next up is Liverpool versus Burnley. Now, on paper, you would think that Liverpool would stroll out comfortable winners in this, but as a Liverpool fan, I can tell you that almost never happens with us. So yeah, Mane suspended for this game. It's going to be a blow, but this time they have enough depth to cope, I think. Oxlade-Chamberlain I would expect to start, and the other big thing is I think Phil Coutinho is going to come back into the side from the start, and he played a cameo in midweek against Sevilla, and the fans actually gave him a good reception, which was nice to see. I mean, they could have easily been well within their rights to boo him for his antics in the summer, but the fact that they applauded him onto the pitch, I just think makes his transition into the first team a bit easier, makes it a bit easier for Klopp to pick him as well, knowing there's going to be no backlash from the support. So yeah, I think with him in the side, I'd expect Sturridge to start as well. They two usually do well together. For Burnley, their main threat is striker called Chris Wood. Big imposing figure. He scored against Spurs, I think, 2 weeks ago or last week. He's a striker that Liverpool traditionally struggle against the big target men, and I expect us to struggle in this game too. But I think Liverpool have just enough to come out 2-1, maybe 3-1 winners. I'll go for 2-1 just to be safe. Yeah. So the next game is Newcastle-Stoke. It's at St James's Park. We know Rafa is a very organised manager. Newcastle have been doing alright, a bit hit and miss, solid but unspectacular. So Stoke have done pretty well themselves. I mean, they've got a point against United last week, already beaten Arsenal this season, and defensively they look really good with Zuma in the side. And going forward, we know they have these quicker players who are able to produce something out of nothing, which is something that they didn't have for a long time at Stoke. So yeah, I also expect this game to be a draw actually. So I'm going to go for 1-1. Next up, we have Watford versus Man City. I think the Watford appointment of Marco Silva has gone under the radar somewhat. I think it's a terrific appointment. Young manager, great style of play, attacking football. He's someone who's impressed me. He impressed me last season with Hull as well. And I think this Watford side will be a far better watch this season than they were last season. Man City, we know what they're capable of. They just have so much attacking talent. It's almost impossible to stop. I mean, I had to witness it firsthand last week when they thumped us. So yeah, I think there'll be goals in this one. I just think City, they'll always have just that extra bit, you know. If things are not going for them, working out for them from the start, they got players to bring off from the bench that are world-class level. I mean, Aguero sometimes starts from the bench for them. That's how good they are. Leroy Sané is coming from the bench, top quality players. So I expect there to be goals, but I expect City to edge it out. I'm going to go 3-2 City. Next is West Brom versus West Ham. West Ham finally got a much-needed win. West Brom, very solid team. We know what they're about. I mean, there's no frills about them. They're gonna play solid. They're gonna play compact. They're gonna look to nick a set piece. You know, things of that nature. So, yeah, it's the Tony Pulis way of playing. It's working out for them, to be fair. So you can't begrudge them. So I'm gonna go for a West Brom win, 1-0 for me over West Ham. Next up is Spurs versus Swansea. Spurs have finally got their mojo going. Thumped Everton 3-0. They looked spectacular in that game. Really controlled the pace of the game. Swansea. I like Paul Clement as a manager. I think he's a really good manager. They made some good signings. I just think that if you're a side who's battling relegation, which Swansea are, these are not the games they're looking to pick up points against. I think it's almost like you're going to accept that you're not going to win these games. Spurs is such a hard place to go to. I know it's Wembley now, but they finally got off the mark at Wembley this week when they beat Borussia Dortmund 3-1. I just think Spurs will have way too much for Swansea in this game, and it's going to be 3-0. And the final fixture of the weekend. Now, this game I would have dubbed a big game going prior to the season, but since the season has kicked off, Everton, we all thought, or at least most of the Evertonians thought, that they would be pushing for top 4, top 5. I don't think anyone really expected them to make top 4, but we thought that they'd give a good solid push. Signed a lot of players, signed a lot of quality players. It just hasn't quite worked out for them. I mean, the tactics that Ronald Koeman wanted to employ just isn't evident at all. There's no game plan there. There's too many central attacking midfielders, like I mentioned. Defense isn't great, which is weird because Koeman being an ex-defender, you would expect him to be able to organise that defense, make it a bit more solid, but it's been very suspect recently. I know they lost to Chelsea and Spurs, which, you know, people might say anyone could lose to those teams, and you'd be right, anyone could lose to those teams, but it's the manner of the defeat. They didn't really put in a shift for the other teammates. They just didn't get going at all. Against Spurs especially, like I said previously, it could have been 7-0 to Spurs. They were that dominant, and it's just not something I'm used to seeing from Everton side. It kind of reminiscent of the days under Martinez towards the end, where the Everton side just weren't putting in a shift at all. Obviously it's not that bad yet, but it could go from bad to worse if they get thumped here at United. Now, I don't expect them to be taken apart, but I do expect United to get the victory simply because, you know, United looking very strong this season. They got a good point away at Stoke last week, won in the Champions League. At Old Trafford, it's going to be a tough place to go to this season. It usually always is. I'm going to go for 2-0 to United. The obvious storyline here is that Wayne Rooney is playing, or he probably will play. Returning back to Old Trafford, the reception he's going to get is pretty interesting. I remember a couple of years ago when Ronaldo returned to Old Trafford, it was kind of a mixed reception, which surprised me. I thought he'd get a lot of cheers given what he's done for them. Rooney's their all-time leading goal scorer, but I think just based on the fact that he's playing against United, he's going to get some boos here and there, I'm sure. Nothing of malice intent. It's just going to be some banter thrown his way. I'm sure he'll be able to deal with it. He's been dealing with it all his life, really. So other than that, I think that concludes the fixtures for this week. Yeah, it does. So that's my take on the games coming up this week. I really appreciate you guys for joining me. I hope you guys like it. I hope you guys share it. If you're watching this on YouTube, do subscribe. I'll do 2 videos a week from now on. So one review show on the Monday or Tuesday, and one preview show. This show came out a bit late. I would have liked to got it out yesterday, but something came up. So thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.